Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jodi Lynn.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And I'm especially happy that Jodi Lynn can join us today because she thought she wasn't going to be able to, but it turns out that they completely sold out at the farmer's market, which is great news for us because that means you got to be here. That's fabulous. So you got a win-win going there.
Yeah, I don't have to sit at a farmer's market for the next 2 weeks in a row. So I would rather be here.
That's a definite win.
Honest. Yeah.
We won't tell Nate, but that's all right.
Okay. It's our secret.
But the main thing is you guys sold out. That's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's amazing.
So people were loving your stuff, except apparently the herbs for some reason. If anybody who wants some herbs, send an email to Jodi Lynn. She'll get some in the mail to you. But why we couldn't figure that one out? Why not the herbs? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Everybody said, I have a shaker of that in my cupboard. Yeah, it's probably full of chemicals and stuff. Yeah, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I'm way more bold, not in front of them. But I'm like,
I got it.
These are better. It's fresh. I just picked them today. Spent like 2.5 hours picking herbs or cutting herbs. Wow. Yeah, it was a long process. But now they're all for me. I get to dry them.
That's going to be an interesting year in the Craven household. I mean, using those herbs, you're going to be going crazy. Yeah.
A lot of oregano. And I don't know what
a lot of oregano. So, okay. Yeah. So you're going to have to go Italian. That's all.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the requirement. So anyway, we have Mark Barnes joining us today. Mark is the author of a recently released book, very newly released book called Hacking Life After 50. And Mark, first of all, welcome to the program. I like your topic, by the way, because it's something that I have been working on for my own life pretty much since I started this podcast. So I'm going to be really curious to find out what tips you have for us. But welcome. How are you doing today?
Hey, Walt, Jodi Lynn, I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here. I love the idea of the happiness in the show title, and I feel like I'm pretty happy. I could talk about herbs, by the way, for a while. I enjoy that. But yeah, I'm ready to go, man. After 50's life, that's what we're talking about.
Now, in your bio, you wrote something that is kind of near and dear to my heart. You said you plan to live well past 100. And I'm aiming well past 100 as well. I actually have, I have the genetic background for it because on my father's side, my father's brother is still alive at 107. And on my mother's side, my great grandmother lived to 108. So I have, centenarians or whatever they're called, on both sides of the family. So I've got the genetics. I just have to follow through. I kind of have a leg up on some people.
Yeah, the genetics is cool, and that's phenomenal. I don't meet many people who are related to any centenarians, so that's really cool. And my parents lived into their 90s, so I feel like I've got a little bit of a leg up. But genetics is really only about 20%. The so-called experts say. So,
okay. Well, I got the first 20% done. That's good. Now I got to do the other 80.
So that's it. So we're working on the other 80.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, you got to tell us. I mean, this has been your project, right? Figuring this stuff out. So tell us, give us some. It's a hacking life after 50. Give us some hacks. We need some hacks, man. Come on.
Absolutely, man. We got lots of hacks. Yeah, for sure. Well, I got interested in longevity probably right about the time of 50, maybe a little bit later. And I have some health issues in my background. Even before my 50s life, I have epilepsy. So that was diagnosed in my 30s. So I take anti-seizure medication, which is, there's all kinds of crazy side effects with that. Fortunately I'm seizure free. So I just take pills in the morning and at night. And I'm always like, okay, well, I'm good to go. But I never really worked that hard on managing the side effects, which again are many. So when I got older, I saw my parents aging. They were in their 80s, and in their late 80s, both had dementia and Alzheimer's. And, the last few years for them was tough, and it's hard, it was hard on the family. And I've got kids, and, they were young then, and I kept thinking, boy, I love the idea of getting to the age my parents are, but I want to be healthy, and I want to have my memories intact. And hopefully my kids, maybe my kids are married, maybe they have kids, and I want to be a grandfather and all that stuff. And I just want to feel good doing it. So that was the impetus for me to change. And I needed a lot of changes. And then, my co-author, Jim Sturdivant, he and I are like-minded people, both educators, researchers, and we've talked a ton over the years about the things we've learned in reading and listening to podcasts and watching videos and TED Talks and everything. And then we would just sort of take things and put them into practice. And that's the hack learning way, is to identify problems, small problems under the umbrella of a larger problem. And then say, okay, what can we do to work on these right now incrementally? So, that's sort of the background behind it. And then the more we talked, a year ago, we just said, hey, we both feel like we're as fit as we've ever been. And Jim is 62 and I'm 59. So, 60 is right around the corner for me. And I feel great. And, with epilepsy and other issues as well. So we said, hey, we've got a lot of good ideas about what we've done that it's worked for us. And there's most of it is research backed. Why don't we, write it down? And that's what gets us to now.
You as you were talking, you reminded me of Abraham Hicks. I'm not sure if you know who Abraham Hicks is. They're one of the guru channel teachers in the law of attraction sphere. And one of the things that they talk about is how Abraham Hicks it's a hyphenated name that describes the fact that Esther Hicks channels this group of entities called Abraham, and that all the messages come from Abraham. Okay. One of the messages that came through was that Esther has this desire to live a long life, but she wants it to be kind of like what you're talking about, a long, happy life. And for her, the ideal life is happy life, happy life, dead.
Okay.
In other words, you just keep going and going and going, and then you're done.
Happy and then done, right?
Yeah.
I like that because there's sort of a stigma around living to 100. I've said that to many people that I want to live to 100, and they go, "Who would want to do that?" Because in our society, especially Western culture, the attitude is that when you start to age or become what we call elderly, which depends on the person, but I guess maybe 80s, 90s. That, you're kind of done. You got nothing left, right? And you're debilitated, so, that's the thing that, is that stigma that we want to overcome. So yeah, I always say happy 100. So I like that. I said, not exactly as eloquently as you put it. But I said, if you can just feel as good as you do right now, right up until that last breath, and, that's a pretty good life.
It's actually quite shocking, talking to people. Obviously, I'm a little bit younger. But a
little bit, Jodi, just a little.
1 or 2 years,
A little bit younger. I'm older than I look, okay?
All right.
But it's
I think it's the first time I've ever heard Jodi Lynn get defensive. Wow. Oh, my God.
I'm younger than I look.
That's good. Yeah. Well, it's funny. This summer, I got a lot of people telling me that I looked like I was 18, 22, whatever. And I'm like, add a lot more to that. And you've got my age. I'm 38. I don't mind saying it because I don't look 38.
Good.
But
say your age. Let's be proud.
Yeah, I am proud of my age, and I'm proud that I look young, and I plan to stay that way, and I want to have that longevity that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And I pay attention to what people are saying around me. I like to listen and reflect on what they're saying. Walt always calls me on that. I'll sit and listen and come up with something profound. But when I listen to people who are in their 50s or 60s or even approaching 50, it's astonishing to me how many of them are like, it's over. Life is over. It's shit from here. I thought, not you could have another 50 years left. What are you talking about? You're just going to give up now? I find that really interesting. But for you, Mark, how much of mindset is playing into this hacking after 50?
Yeah, well, it's a big part. And we can swear on here because I can get crazy, just so you know. So.
The FCC has nothing to do with this show, so I think we say.
Yeah.
No, mindset's a big part, Jodi Lynn. We actually have a chapter dedicated to mindset, and then throughout the book we continue to reference it. Jim and I have, we think, coined the phrase momentum mindset. And the ideas behind it aren't revolutionary. What we say in the book is that the idea behind momentum mindset is that it's a set of attitudes that are founded on the ideas of growth. And we build that out into, pieces. So the pieces are maintaining curiosity. We're curious when we're young, when kids are the before 50s, and certainly teenagers and college kids and whatever, they're very curious. When we get to after 50s life, we tend to lose that. So we want to maintain or grow curiosity. We want to be adventurous. And that's another thing that tends to fade in after 50s life. Cause we feel like, I think you said it, we've done it, right? It's over. So we talk a lot about that, curiosity, adventure, risk taking. It's real easy in after 50s life, especially if you're retired, if you're an empty nest, and thinking, what do I have to do? So I'm not really going to take any risks. I'm going to sit at home. We tend to be sedentary, and we can talk a whole lot about that and movement and all the other parts of hacking life after 50. But the mindset is crucial, and we bring it up throughout the idea that I still have a lot to give, that I have a purpose. I get out of bed in the morning for a reason, not just because I'm done sleeping. But I have a purpose, and I'm constantly growing and learning. I'm going to read. I'm going to listen to people, and who knows, I might try new things, and could even be a career. I taught for 23 years in the classroom, junior high and high school. And when I left the classroom, I first did it because I wrote some books about education. So I was out talking to teachers about my career and all, and helping them. And then, I thought, okay, well, I'm not teaching anymore. And then I stopped traveling and presenting, and it's like, okay, well, I could sit around and do nothing. But instead, I started a whole new career. It was related to education, but I started authoring books and getting into the publishing side, and just that curiosity and that risk taking really leads to vibrancy. So the mindset is a crucial piece to a quality life after 50, and the quest to a healthy 100.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In fact, as you guys were talking there, I was reminded of a party I went to about a month ago. And it was all people relatively around my age. I'm 66. So people in their 60s, mostly some in their 70s. And I was by far the youngest person there in terms of body, in terms of mentality, in terms of everything else. It was almost terrifying how many people at that party. It was the entire party. There were probably 30, 40 people there. And you would have been hard pressed to find any single one of them who had a really positive attitude about where they were in life. They were all about, the illness that they experienced, or the injury they had, or how they can't do anything anymore. It's like all the negatives that were just continuously pouring out. There was one woman, she actually could be a very, very attractive woman today. You could tell, you could see it. Mm-hmm. But because of her attitude, you can also see how she's just sliding really, really fast downhill, all because of the mental outlook. It was a stark experience. That's the best word I can think of to describe it. It was stark. In fact, they kept talking to me about, wow, you're so thin. You're in such great shape. How do you do it? And I said, well, I take care of myself. I mean, this is not a difficult thing. You could try it. It's a good thing. Give it a shot.
But I love the story, and I totally understand it. I've been in that environment myself. And, we said Hacking Life After 50 just came out, and we've seen some early reviews on Amazon. And it's funny because you talked about how the person says, how do you do it? And so it's not all that complicated. I'm happy to say good reviews, but a lot of them say this is really practical stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not, it isn't, I don't think there's a lot of rocket science in Hacking Life After 50. What we've done is done some research and then put some stuff into practice and said, here's a combination of simple things. I think that's what we've really tried to do, is to break down what people think are complicated. You're 66, you look great. You're fit, you're thin, you look good. You're not wrinkled. People say, well, how does that happen? So what we've done, and how do I do it? That's a bigger question, is people who haven't done it. And you'd be surprised at how many people have done very little exercise. I mean, you already know as your listeners, everyone knows that we're probably the most obese country in the world. And exercise, as popular as it is to talk about, it's not a real popular thing to do. So, we look at all those aspects. And then the mental, I love the part you said about the mental and the people's attitude. What do I have left? I feel so bad. Life's horrible. That kind of negativity we talk a lot about in Hacking Life After 52.
Yeah. Because that's where it all starts. Because until you've got that piece ironed out, and Jodi Lynn and I talk about this all the time, until you've got that ironed out, you're not going to make any improvements. It's just not going to happen. No. Doesn't matter what knowledge you got and what research you've done. If you don't have the mindset for it, forget it. You're screwed. You got to set the mindset first.
And that's where it starts. I mean, like I went through my own personal transformation. And, it's what got us to here, and what got me to write about it was I went through a very impactful, I think life impacting, transformation. And it was physically too, but it started with mindset. I was sedentary and I wasn't, and when I was a kid, I was an athlete, in college, I ran track. Then I started, as the decades came, I slowed down. It's easy to do, career and family and kids and whatever. But, I didn't have time to play basketball or tennis anymore. I didn't have time to go to the gym. And then, along with some medications that make it really easy to gain weight, the pounds came. And then it's easy also with your mindset to blame, to say, oh, I have a debilitating disease and I have to take heavy medication. So, I'm 30 pounds overweight and I feel awful now and I'm tired. That whole mindset just sends you down the rabbit hole, and it isn't a good one to go down. Oh. So what got me to change was that mindset where I finally said, you know what, it's time. Things have to change. And again, going back to the beginning, it started when I looked at my kids and I looked at my parents, into the spectrum. Late 80s and kids in their, 10, 11 years old. And I said, I want to be here for them, but I don't want it to be in the shape that my parents are, something has to change.
And it starts with a choice. Do you want to change? Because a lot of that's really what we're talking about. A lot of people, the answer to that question is no.
And we ask a question in the book. That's a great one. We ask a lot of questions. We say, if you want to have a momentum mindset, there are some requirements. We say, ask yourself these questions. And one of those questions is that one. Are you willing to take a chance? Are you willing to change? Mm-hmm. Because if the answer is no, close up the book. I mean, right. You have to be willing to do those things. But they're not hard. I think the biggest obstacle people face really in any time in life, but certainly well into after 50s life is fear,
Yes.
Some people say, yeah, I'm willing to change, but what does it look like? Mm-hmm. And that can be terrifying. And again, I think that's the crux of Hacking Life After 50 is we really break it down. So I think anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm. Do you find too, Mark, that another thing alongside of fear would be like the overwhelm of how much, like if you're stuck down in that rabbit hole and you keep telling yourself, I'm on all these medications that make me gain weight. And then, I'm overweight and my knees are bad and this is bad and that is bad and I can't do it. And you add all of these things up, it becomes this monumental pile of crap that you can't get out of. To even see that, you just need to take a little bit at a time off and eventually you'll see a difference.
Yeah. Well, I think the overwhelm is a key word, and it's tough to get started, because the one thing is, especially when you live a sedentary life, it's really easy to gain weight for one, and weight's a problem. We don't, Hacking Life After 50 is not a diet book. It's not a weightlifting book. Those things are included, resistance training, all that stuff is included. But it's really all about what we're discussing. It's more about incremental change. So we acknowledge that people are going to be stuck in a rut that they've been in for a long time, and the change we recommend can appear daunting. So the key is incrementalism. So the first we say if it's weight, if you have a weight problem, which I share my own story, I had a weight problem. that I needed to take care of. And for me, it was daunting to say I had never really addressed it at all. And I wasn't obese, but I was, 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And that's a lot. 30 pounds is a lot. I'm at my set weight. So you add 30 pounds, it's like putting 30 pounds of weight and carrying it around. Mm-hmm. So when I realized that, again, daunting. The first thing is, how am I going to lose this weight? You have a doctor tell you need to drop 30 pounds. You're like, oh, wow. What does that look like? And, that's the reason people don't get up. We've got inflammation. We've got arthritis. You have issues that make movement difficult. And then you're going to say, okay, we have to start moving. Well, you get people who have been sitting most of the time. I mean, I watched my mother, from the time she was about 87 and she died at 91. And those last 4 years, this was a person who didn't move. She stayed in bed. And I mean, she would get up occasionally and I always said she lived her life like a cat. She slept 20, 22 hours a day. And then she would get up for 5 minutes and say, think about attitude and people, what their mindset is. I'm sick. I don't feel good. I have to go back to bed. And that's tough. So then you look at a person like that. If someone's watching or listening and they have that kind of existence and you say, now you have to move, that gets to be tough. So yeah, I face that and I think other people face it. But what we say is, again, we preach incrementalism. And I think that it's not, again, I keep saying it's not rocket science, but it is something that people don't truly understand. That if I want to change the way I look, if I want to change my body composition, I have to start somewhere. If you don't start, nothing happens. And that starting can be as small as standing up. Get up out of your chair and stand for, we say 30 seconds to a minute. And then go ahead and sit back down. But if you can start doing things like that and you can do that multiple times throughout the day and do it for a week, well, then the next week it gets a lot easier then to turn that standing into stepping, take some steps, move. And it's the same with diet. And it isn't always that I have a massive amount of weight to lose. It's not so much about weight as it is fitness. Right. And a lot of times people are stuck. We talk about the standard American diet. That's why we're obese, because the standard American diet drills into society that, it's fast food. If it isn't fast, it's not right. We're on the go. You have to eat fast. And it's, what's fast? All the processed foods, the deep fried foods, the burgers, the coffee shops, the lattes, all of that. That's just where we are. And that gets us to a very bad place.
Yeah. Well, the acronym for the standard American diet is SAD, and it's sad for a reason.
Sound like you've read the book already, Walt. That's what we say. We say the standard American diet is sad for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to tell another story too, based on what we're talking about. Cause like you, I've over the last 4 years, I lost 35 pounds. I got another 5 pounds to go before I'm at my ideal weight. But at that same party, this story comes right out of that same party. At the point of, where they were talking about how I'm in such great shape and so forth, how did I do it? I told them I'd lost 35 pounds. 20 of them I've lost in the last year. I was, divorced this past year. And, so the 20 pounds came off pretty much since, my ex and I split from each other. And I was very deliberately taking steps through diet and through activity to make that happen. And it's happened. And I've got 5 more to go. It's like, I'm almost reached the goal. This is really cool. So anyway, I'm telling that story to the group there, and they're all kind of skeptical. And there's this one guy in particular who decides to start challenging me. And he's got this big gut, and he says, I'll tell you what I eat. And he starts listing for me sounds like a very healthy diet. He says, this is the way I eat every single day, and I'm not losing any weight. And so I voiced sympathy. I had no idea what the total story was, but I was sympathetic and like, oh yeah, okay. Well, if you're doing the right thing, that's good. Make sure you get the exercise, all that kind of thing. And then literally in front of me, he proceeded to grab the pasta salad and pile it onto his plate and start eating it, followed by the dessert. And I said to myself, wow, that guy really isn't being honest with himself.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even realized it.
Or he thinks pasta is healthy.
Possibly.
That's another problem we have. And we talk about this in Hacking Life After 50 in this, a chapter we talk about diet, but we try to stay away from diet. We talk about meal planning, but we do without getting too deep into research and science. We do list the things that, are and are not healthy, that are universally approved by the medical field, that this is okay, this not okay. And we talk about reading labels, and again, that's not new, but it is something that people don't do, walk through your grocery. Anytime you're in the grocery, just stop and observe. And I guarantee you people who are watching or listening to this will do this next time they're in the store. There might only be a few things they remember about me. But they say, I remember that guy said this. But you see how many people read a label. I drive my wife nuts. I'll tell you, she thinks I'm a little bit obsessive about my lifestyle, in all honesty. But, we grocery shop together, and, she'll put something in the cart and I pick it up and start reading it. And she's like, stop that. Do you know how much hidden sugar there is in this? But, a lot of people have been told that pasta's healthy, and there's certain ways to eat pasta, but in general, not healthy. So the guy who thinks he eats well and loads up the pasta, not so much.
Well, you even think about like the way that our pasta is different here versus in Italy. It's, different wheat. I'm a farm girl. I grew up on a farm, grew up around a farm, live on a farm. And I only recently found out how much modification has gone into our wheat and therefore is causing a lot of problems within our system. It's not what it was when, my grandma would eat it. It's a different kind of wheat now. It's not as nutritious, if maybe I can make the bold statement, at all nutritious anymore.
Well, we've one of the sources Jim and I have both read and watched. We're big fans of Dan Buettner, who did the Blue Zones, and people may recognize that now because there's a Netflix series. And Jodi Lynn, you just made me think of that immediately. I flashed to it because I just binged the whole there's 4 episodes. But he's in Sardinia in Italy. And or maybe it's an island off of Italy. I don't want to get this wrong, but I might. But anyways, they're making a lot of the things that we would say aren't good. They live on the breads and the pastas and make their own wine. And believe me, I'm a big fan of wine, so we try not to poo-poo that too much. But the way they do it, and that's what's cool about the show, is they show them making it, and everything is natural. So, that's another thing that's a problem with mindset. If someone watches that and they go, oh, pasta's good. Oh, the breads are good. And then you go into your grocery here and buy those. It's a much different animal. So you're absolutely right. So again, we do say that, learning is so important, and we don't share a ton of research in the book. We mention sources and we encourage people to look on their own because we're both teachers and we think, the best way to learn is to teach yourself. So, learn how to read labels and learn how to know what's going into the stuff that you think is healthy. 97% fat free is still not good. There's a little quick tip for people.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day and it was like, I think it was canola oil and it was butter. And it was so interesting because it went through like the process of how canola oil is like actually derived, which I didn't know. And it's disgusting. And they're like, it's got like a stamp deemed safe. And then butter, it's like shake cream really hard. And you get butter deemed not safe. And it's so interesting when we start looking at the perspectives that we have and like, oh, this is better for me because somebody else said, but we have nothing that really backs that up. And I love that you're all about, you got to learn what's in your food.
Yeah.
To it. So
I appreciate that comment because we reiterate it over and over. We say in the introduction, we're not doctors. We're not certified nutritionists. We're educators, researchers, and practitioners. And we emphasize throughout check your sources. We say if we mention something and we say that according to experts we don't typically say that, we say like the medical community or whatever, we're talking about, the Mayo Clinic and, people who have doctors who have done the research. We're not grabbing just any YouTube video. Like people might watch this and say, I heard this guy say, that guy said it has to be right. But, and I hope they do that, but it's based on research and practice and everything. And we say, also default to your own doctor. If you've got a doctor you've had for a long time, there's a pretty good chance that doctor knows you.
And I think it's also important to mention there are some people who do have genetic issues when it comes to, say, weight loss. And there are other issues that can be tied in. You mentioned medications. There are certain medications that will create weight retention. My sister deals with one that's been pretty severe for her. But putting those aside, the way I lost my 35 was, I'm active. I get up pretty much every day. I'm a dancer. I don't do a lot of heavy workout or anything like that, but I'm pretty active. But mainly, I did what you talked about. I read the labels and I did everything I could to replace the sugar with something else that would not be sugar. That was my big diet. My diet was just get the sugar out.
And that's it.
Over the course of 4 years, I lost 35 pounds just by eating. I didn't change anything else. I didn't change the amount I ate or anything like that. I ate the same kind of stuff. I just did it without the sugar.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. I mean, that's our plan. Honestly, Walt, the plan, we say, be your own dietitian, so be your own meal planner and find something that works for you. Collaborate with your doctor and they're going to tell you what we say anyways, that you do have to eat some healthy foods. You have to eat fruits and vegetables, but you don't have to eliminate everything. Like you said, what did you do? You replaced one really bad thing, probably the worst thing, right? Sugar.
Right. Yeah. It's the obvious one.
And people are like, oh no, now I can't eat ice cream or cheesecake. No, we don't.
God, I can't tell you how many times I've had ice cream. I've had ice cream many times. It's
a balance. It's a balance, but the majority has to be the healthy stuff. That's just what it is. Jim and I like, occasional burger or a chicken wing or pizza, but the most of the time it's plant-based. I mean, before I came on with you guys tonight, I had a really wonderful salad packed with all kinds of great greens and superfoods. And, it makes me feel great.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I love the ice cream, but I don't have it every day. That's the difference. My ex actually is the one, she would have it every day. Well, not necessarily ice cream, but she would have some little treat every single day. And then she wondered why she wasn't losing any weight. I said, come on. You can't, it doesn't work that way. The only way the weight's there is because you put it in the first place. Yeah, you got to find some way to break that structure up. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, people struggle with healthy eating, because again, the standard American diet, we're so in tune with the wrong things. And, I'm the first to say that most of the stuff tastes good, right? I used to laugh when my family was fans of that show, The Biggest Loser, and I used to laugh when the trainers on the show, they had one episode where they would eat the food that the other people ate, and so she's got the cheeseburger and the fries, and she takes the big bite, and she's gagging. And I look at my wife and my kids and I said, that's just ridiculous. I said, you're not going to gag on it. It tastes delicious. Let's just be real. But again, it's increments. We need increments. And, I didn't used to like fruits and vegetables and I write about that in our diet chapter that, it was hard for me, and my wife really was inspirational in that because she was more into health and fitness than I was early on, and she liked smoothies. And I watched her make and freeze and blend smoothies every day. And I was just, I was kind of fascinated by it. And she liked the green smoothie, so it didn't look good to me. I'm like, she's putting kale and, all kinds of greens in there. And I'm like, that can't be good. And she said, well, I said, I know I need that stuff, but that can't be good. she said, well, you can make a smoothie a whole lot of different ways. So she blended me in the first smoothie literally that I ever drank in my life. And she put a little bit of spinach in there, but not so much that it would turn it green. And then she put berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and maybe a little bit of yogurt and water. And she froze that, and the next day she blended it up. It was delicious. And I was like, how'd you do this? I said, first of all, it's not green.
Yeah, right.
But I'll tell you, and that became an evolution over time where I really got into it. We've got all kinds of blenders and choppers and big fans of all of that. And it's an experiment. And, in Hacking Life After 50, Jim and I write about that another hack for changing the way you eat and being your own meal planner is to make it an adventure, make it fun, explore, make your stuff with someone else, with a loved one, with a family member, a spouse, a friend, anyone else who you say, hey, I want to get on this journey to better eating. Why don't you join me? And, my wife and I couldn't tell you how many times we're both packing up sandwich bags with our smoothie stuff and, music playing in the background, and it's fun. And then it tastes delicious and it's super healthy.
Really good. Really good. I like the way you got into smoothies too. I've never really done that myself. I kept avoiding it. So hearing a positive story makes me think, okay, maybe I should try that one.
Well, I'll tell you, I got on our Facebook page, which is called After 50s Life, there is, I did a video, of me creating the smoothie. I took pictures. Here's some ingredients, another ingredient, right up to me putting it in the freezer, taking it out, blending it. And, the whole thing's only about 25, 30 seconds long.
Mm-hmm.
But that was pretty viral. I think, it had, 30 or 40,000 views in a few days. But, a lot of people are, people on social media, a lot of them are like, that's crazy. But a lot of people said that looks delicious. I'm going to try it. And and the little captions of the healthy things that are in there. And I said, this, the smoothie that I make, that I show on that video on Facebook, it contains like 28% of your daily required fiber, 30% of your daily required protein, all kinds of magnesium and all kinds of other nutrients that we typically don't get enough of. And it tastes delicious.
Yeah. Our food today isn't full of nutrients. You might get the caloric intake that your body needs or over that what your body needs. But there's not a lot of nutritious value in things. I've been learning a lot about like Celtic sea salt and different ways to boost those nutrients within your body. And I think smoothies are a great way to do that.
I just read about Celtic sea salt. It's so funny that you said that. Yeah, it's great. But isn't that, you said, you just read something and it's fascinating. And I think it's great for people to hear that. Again, this is an idea that we promote in Hacking Life After 50, that it's an adventure, healthy living, and the idea even of living to a healthy 100, whether you make it or not, it's just the idea that it could be possible. And then saying, I really want to explore this. That's a big piece of After 50's life that we talk about as well. And it speaks to mindset too, is that idea again of momentum and exploration and learning. I mean, we're lifelong learners, and I just love hearing you say that you read about something and it was fascinating. That's what I want people to hear. Go read about this stuff. If you think, man, I don't know if I could eat vegetables, or, spinach and kale sounds gross, learn ways to make them that they're not gross, because that they're good for you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've done myself, because I still stay away from the kale. I still stay away from some of that stuff. I just, nope, I'm not going there. But one of the things that I found it makes it a whole lot easier is there's a lot of, without making too much of a redundant play on words here, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. I mean, literally, there's a lot of things that you can do that are easy, that don't require you to kind of go against your built-in prejudices and so forth. That they're just like little easy things you can do. So go for the easy ones first.
Yeah.
Because when you go for the easy ones, first of all, that's part of the incremental process that you're talking about. But even more than that, it's part of the process of changing the experience of your life. Because when you change the experience of the life and then you get some results out of it, then you feel encouraged to try to experience something else. But until you get that's where that momentum comes from that you're talking about. When you can build that momentum up one little step at a time, it becomes easier later on to actually consider, maybe I will go after the kale. No, not the kale. But it becomes easier after time to go after the harder and harder stuff, just because you did the easy stuff first.
Yeah. And the other thing, going back to what Jodi Lynn said, is I keep coming back to this idea of exploring and learning. You know, I never realized how many different vegetables there even are. You know, I mean, it's amazing when you start doing some research. And that's, you know, we talk about the positive side of social media. We also talk about the negative, and that's the whole mental piece and the emotional piece of our book is, you know, first of all, stay away from toxic things. You know, toxicity is really bad. It creates stress, and stress is a killer. So, you know, we're talking about being healthy. So reduce stress at all costs. So we talk about the toxic nature of social media and what to avoid, but there's some positives. And if you emphasize the positives, you also learn. I have learned so much about plant-based eating and plant-based foods that I didn't know. Cause I'm like you too, Walt. There's some greens that I'm like, yeah, I just don't really want anything to do with that. And honestly, kale is I do eat sometimes, but it's not one of my favorites. But, you know, I discovered other things. You know, we recommend, like, to get started, I typically default to spinach because it's a really mild vegetable. You know, if you mix spinach into a wrap or an omelet or almost anything, you hardly even know that it's there.
Right.
Some greens that are extremely healthy have stronger taste. So, you know, that's one thing I would tell anyone listening, if you want to ease into more superfoods, especially, is look for the ones that have a milder taste. But when you start exploring, and you can find people on Facebook, Instagram that are in the nutrition world that will expose you to healthy vegetables that you'll be like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then you try it, you know, and that goes back to that adventure. Suddenly going to the grocery store, which I used to hate, you know, now it becomes an adventure. I find myself in the produce section, and I'm just like, wow, I want to go, this has got some color to it. I want to see what that is. Mm-hmm. So that's a cool piece as well.
I learned something fascinating, speaking of nutrition, about carrots. So my husband and I, we have this, you know, large market garden, and we sell some vegetables. We do lots of garlic, and we do cucumbers, pickling cucumbers. Mm-hmm. And we did some carrots this year, and we didn't have enough to sell. And some of them were really tiny, and some of them were like, you know, all like wonky and whatever. Like, my husband's like, we can't sell that. It looks retarded. So we have some of these carrots left, and, you know, we're going to stock our freezer. That's something that's become important to us, is having our own food, because we would sell everything and then, you know, go to the grocery store and buy things that we had to other people. It's just stupid, right? So we were like, what are we doing? Let's keep our own stuff. Let's blanch it. You know, it takes a different skill set. But my husband and I were in the garden just the other day, and I was like, okay, well, we don't have that many carrots to like blanch and put in the freezer for the winter or whatever. And he's like, did you know the carrot top has more nutrients in it than the actual carrot? So you take the top of the carrot, and then you can dry it out, and you can grind it up into a powder, and then you can just put it in things, and you have no idea that it's in there because it doesn't really have a taste, I guess. Mm-hmm. And because it's dried and it's just a powder now, but it adds all of this nutrition to your meal.
And I would have never thought of I did know that, what you shared, but I would have never thought about the grinding it up piece. Yeah. So again, you know, you talk about if you want to make changes, whether it's diet or something else, when you get around like-minded people, and you know, it creates a great conversation. I mean, who would have thought we could talk this long about vegetables, right? And not bore people, you know, and not be like, what a snooze fest. And hopefully it isn't, but you know, it isn't to me. I love this stuff. But yeah, I right away, like the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, grinding it up. That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah. And really that's true of a lot of fruits and vegetables, that the outsides and the peels and, all of that is where most of the nutritional value is. And if you think about what you can do, I mean, I love the chopper, and I will just put things in there, and I've had my daughter go, "You going to put that whole thing in there?" And I'm like, yeah, because this is the part you don't like is where a lot of the nutritional value is, but I say, but I'm going to chop it up and you're not even going to notice it.
That's the adventure, right? Now you're using kind of like power tools in the kitchen.
Right. There you go. So for your power tool lovers, there you go.
Right.
You say, hey man, I'm going to start chopping some stuff up.
Yeah.
Nutrition for home improvement fans. I love it. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of how much time we've spent talking about food, we should talk about a few other things. I mean, we were talking earlier about activities, exercise, all that kind of thing. Of course, you put the E word up there, and all of a sudden people start turning off because, like you said, people often just shy away from exercise. I shied away from it for years. I've started getting back into it finally, but I shied away from years, and it's one of those unfortunate things. But even though that I don't know what you call it, prejudice, I guess, exists. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're locked in. We have to do exercise. It's mainly about the activity, isn't it? It's about getting yourself started to do stuff you hadn't been doing before.
Totally. Absolutely spot on. What we want to do, and again, this is really talking about after 50s life. And when you get well into it, 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond, what we want to do is we want to fight sarcopenia, which is muscle mass degeneration, bone degeneration, and which leads to, when you lose muscle mass and bone degeneration, and then you lose flexibility and balance, the real enemy becomes falling. Mm. So, and there's some staggering numbers on people who fall, and I won't bore you with those. You can look them up if you want to, but let's just say when you get it after 60, it's millions and millions of people every year in the United States alone fall. Now 1 in 4 of those, I said I wasn't going to bore you with statistics, and here I am. One in 4 of those elderly people who fall, will break a hip. Mm. Now here's where it gets really nasty. Of those people who break their hips, 1 in 4 of those, now this is after the age of 70, will die within a year.
Wow.
So you think about it, no matter how old you are, if you're a youngster like Jodi Lynn here, who still is very mindful of her longevity, right? That's what I'm getting from this conversation, at least. Mm-hmm. And really kind of living a Blue Zones life, Jodi Lynn. It's just a sidebar. If you haven't watched that on Netflix, you'll love that, because you're really kind of living that life, I think. But
I'm gonna watch it now.
The idea of I got to call Dan Buettner and tell him I'm promoting him here.
You gotta get your feet.
To millions of people. But, the idea again is to fight sarcopenia, to fight the idea of falling and possibly dying from a fall after a short time. What we want to work on are the functional movements that lead to falls. So you think about it, people who fall, I mean, unless you're young and you slip on the ice or something, most people who fall, certainly in the after 50s world, it's about balance and muscle mass. So you can fall getting up. My father died at 93, and really in the end, it was his heart that got him. But I'll tell you what put him in a hospital the night that he died was a fall. And he was just getting up out of his chair. Now he was still, doing pretty well at his age, moving around, but, getting up out of a chair, going from a carpet to a hard surface, if you're wearing socks, just that little slip, people who don't have good balance can fall. If you're overweight and in the after 50s life, again, your chances of falling increase dramatically. So what we want to do in the resistance training and movement world is work on those movements. And the things we want to focus on are push, pull, squat. So you just picture that. Anybody who's listening or watching, picture push, pull, squat. And the things you do on a daily basis. Squatting is easy. I mean, sitting down, getting up, you're squatting to do those things. You bend over to pick something up off the floor. Another way people fall. you're bending over to pick something up, you're squatting. You think about pushing and pulling. If you go to the grocery store and you're carrying groceries, you're pushing and pulling. Mm-hmm. So these are the movements that we really want to work on the most. And again, go back to incrementalism. You can do it as simply as getting up and moving, as getting on the floor. Get on the floor and get up. Another on our Facebook page, After 50's Life, I did another video sitting in the floor and getting up. And I said, see if you can do this with one hand. And then the ultimate challenge is if you can do it with no hands. So if you can sit in a sitting position on the floor, not a chair, and get up. Yeah. And you certainly want to be able to do that with one hand. But, when I did the video, I'm holding my phone, so I'm using the one hand to get up. And, of course, a lot of people are like, well, if you can't get up, you really got problems. But the key is I talked about how I do this every day, and I'm not elderly, I'm going on 60. But I do this every day as a part of my daily routine of stretching and of working on balance and push, pull, squat. I sit in the floor. I get up using my left leg. I get up using my right leg. I work very hard to try and not to use my arms at all. And there's a lot of other ways that you can do it, that, you can work those foundational movements that we talk about in Hacking Life After 50.
I'm actually on a certain quest of my own right now that started about 3 months ago, because 3 months ago I started experiencing, chronic low-level pain in my right Achilles, in my Achilles tendon, in my heel, and ended up going to physical therapy about it. And the physical therapist told me that it was not because of some injury I had, because I couldn't pinpoint exactly what had caused it. She said it was something that had developed over time because of my height. I'm very tall. I'm 6'8", and a 6'8" person in our world is dealing with everything down. Counters are down. People are down. Everything is way down there. And so I'm having to adjust my posture all the time. And because everything is so interconnected within the body, what has ultimately happened, long story short, is that I ended up overcompensating with my right Achilles in order to compensate for all this stuff without realizing I was even doing it. I mean, that's the way this thing works. We don't even know that we're doing it. So I tell you that story because she's also, over time, I've been working with her for 3 months now, and this is probably about a 6-month process because it takes a long time to heal a tendon. But she's been giving me a series of exercises to do. Now, when you hear the word exercise, you think about going into a gym or something like that. Let me tell you, these exercises barely qualify as exercise. Now, I say that with a little bit of a tongue in cheek because I have to put some mental effort into doing them. Mm-hmm. It has more to do with carefully controlling how I do certain kinds of motions that she wants me to do. But they do provide an exercise function, and I'm doing them every day because I want to heal this thing. And you know what? I'm finding that, among other things, my balance was already on the way out. I am rebalancing myself. I'm retraining muscles in my feet, in my back, in various parts of my body that had kind of gotten soft because of these compensations I've been doing over the years. So I'm literally retraining my body how to walk. I mean, I walk just fine. I dance. I do all kinds of stuff, but I am literally retraining my body how to walk. And the funniest thing is happening. I'm stabilizing. Mm-hmm. My body is stable. One of the things that you do when you're a dancer, I'm a social dancer, ballroom, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. One of the things that happens a lot when you dance is that there are various things you do where you kind of have to stop on one foot for a moment. And I used to have a lot of trouble with that. I didn't know why I was having trouble. Well, it was because of all this other stuff going on that ultimately led to the Achilles injury. Doing these little simple exercises, and we're talking about things like, getting down on all fours and rocking backward. I mean, that's how tough the exercise is. Now, there's a particular form you're supposed to follow in order to make it effective. Mm-hmm. But it's not like you're working heavy muscle groups or anything like that. But just those kinds of little exercises, I'm finding now I can actually stop on a dime in the middle of a dance and not waver all over the place. Like, oh my God, I'm getting my agility back.
And that's a great point. Yeah. It doesn't have to be super hard. And we're very upfront about that in Hacking Life After 50. We have a whole chapter on resistance training we call Reclaim Your Muscle. And right away, it's like, we're not trying to turn you into Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
Most people have no chance of looking like that, after 50s anyways. But, and some people are afraid of that. We talk to people and talk about resistance training and maybe integrating some weights or some resistance bands. And some people are afraid. They're like, well, I don't want to get real muscular. So I love that story because simple movements can be the answer. And then they do compound, sort of like interest. It's great. They compound, and look at what they've done to your whole body, Walt. That's phenomenal.
And at age 66. Now I'm supposedly over the hill, right? That the hill is what 50, 55, something like that. And I'm over the hill. So I'm supposedly in the zone where it's all downhill from I'm improving physically. Yeah. I'm better than I was 2 years ago.
We're going to a healthy 100 and beyond. We're not over the hill, man. We're still climbing the hill.
Well, yeah, if you're not climbing the hill, you're dying. Let's be honest.
Right.
You got to constantly climb that hill. If you're not growing, you're dying. There's no in between state. There's not like, Jodi, it's like a plant. I think as a plant, I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to grow any higher. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Jodi Lynn, ask me about sleep.
Oh, yes. Tell me all about sleep. I have this conversation with my husband often, so I'd love your take.
Well, there you go. So you're going to play this for him. See what I did there? Yeah, I know we're running out of time. So we talked about fruits and vegetables and food for so long, and then movement and resistance training. And this is another one I want to get in there, even though there's more in Hacking Life After 50. But, in each one of our chapters, which we call hacks, we start with the problem. What's the biggest problem around this topic? The biggest problem around sleep is that it's underrated. People don't believe that sleep is important. They don't value it. And I can tell you from experience, and I tell this story in Hacking Life After 50, I was an insomniac, and it was on my chart when I went to see my doctor. And every year with the physical, how's the sleep? Because I didn't sleep well. And I used to blow it off. I'd say, no, I don't sleep well. I struggle. I toss. I turn. Sometimes I sleep 3 or 4 hours. And guess what? If I wake up at 2 or 3, I just get up because sleep's a waste of time. Well, on my journey to health and fitness and wanting to live a long, healthy, joy-filled life, and in all the research that we've done, I started digging into sleep. And what I learned is that it is underrated, and it's one of the most important pieces of longevity and also just of health, no matter how old you are, that you have to have 7 to 9 hours of restorative sleep every night. And that's actual sleep. That's not how much time you were in bed. And that's getting 18 to 22% deep sleep, REM sleep, and along with the light sleep that you're going to get the most of. There are things you have to do to get this kind of sleep. So when people tell you I'm a horrible sleeper, there are insomniacs. I said I feel like I cured my insomnia. That's not a medical diagnosis. That's just me. It's anecdotal. So I don't claim to tell people I could cure their insomnia, but the hacks that we provide, I think, are some of the best in the book about sleep, because it's one of my favorite chapters because it has been a life changer for me. And I sleep 7 to 9 hours. I wear a ring with a biosensor, an Oura ring, and, people wear the watches or whatever you like. We're tech agnostic in the book, but, we do think it's important if you want to measure things, all the things we've talked about, if you want to measure them. The wearable technology is fantastic, and the prices continue to come down. But I get every single day when I get up in the morning, I start by going to my app, and I can see exactly what happened the night before. And I got real serious about that. And there's a whole lot of things you can do, to improve your sleep. If you say, oh, that'll never work for me. Hacking Life After 50, we have incremental, step by step things you can do. And I really believe, again, unless there's some diagnosis I don't understand in the medical side, I truly believe that anyone who reads this and follows the instructions, you will sleep better almost instantly. And your life will change. You feel better in the morning. You'll be in a better mood. You can ask my family that. It's a game changer.
If I was to ask them, what would they say? I mean, what was the before picture like? It doesn't sound great.
we don't want to talk about the before.
Okay, so we'll limit it to the after.
I told my husband when we first met, I'm a happy person. Like, I'm a very happy person, happy-go-lucky. That's just who I am, right? But there's 2 caveats. When I'm hungry, feed me. And when I need to go to bed, let me go to sleep. There's no exceptions. Like, I turn into a different person when I'm hungry or if I'm tired. That's just it. So I agree with you, Mark. Sleep is important.
You just named 2 of the 4 halts. HALT, the acronym HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
I get hungry, then I get angry.
And then you're hangry.
Yeah, and then I'm hangry. It's a problem. I don't know what it is, but I get like I'm a lunatic when I'm hungry.
So the book is Hacking Life After 50. It was like literally just released, wasn't it, Mark? I mean, how long ago?
Yeah, just this week. Yeah, it's brand new, but you can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere. Your stores, if it's not there, ask, they'll bring it.
If somebody wants to reach out to you and learn more about what you have done, what you talk about and so forth, or maybe even ask you a question or, get a conversation or whatever, how do they reach you?
Well, we're talking about After 50s Life, so we made it easy. Our website is after50slife.com. There's links to the book. There's links to my bio and also my social channels. And reach out to me anytime. I'm on every day and I love getting comments. Our Facebook page again is After 50s Life. I respond to, we're getting pretty overwhelmed with comments now, which I'm thrilled about.
Nice.
But we try to respond to absolutely everything. So, reach out.
Excellent. And we'll make sure that we'll include a link in the show notes as well so that people can find it the easy way. We don't want to have to make them Google everything. We try to make it a little bit simple.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. One more thing that I want to tell you too, that I make it a point of telling to all of my guests, because like all the rest of them, you've found something you wanted to give back on and give in a big way. And people who give, are giving all the time. You come onto this podcast, you go onto your social media, you're putting out all this content. Most of it you're not getting paid anything for. You're just doing it because you love it and in support of the book too, but mainly because you're trying to help people and so forth. And I realized about a year and a half ago that we don't get enough credit for that. So on behalf of those people that you've never met and that you've never seen, thank you for all that you've been doing, all that you've been putting out there, because you are making a difference in this world.
Well, I really appreciate that. I always say, I tell my wife all the time, I'm not looking for a pat on the back, but it is really nice for that to be acknowledged. And we do, Jim and I both, my co-author, he still teaches, but he's retired, but he teaches 1 or 2 days a week at a college. And, so he's giving back that way because he certainly isn't getting paid that well to do that. But we're on the Facebook page, we're creating videos, walking or sitting in our yards, and we're also sharing great sources. I think we follow on that page, After 50s Life, we follow a ton of really valuable people. So I would say even look at the people we're following if you're interested in this topic. And I hope people will buy the book, but it doesn't matter. We're going to keep putting the content out because this is a life we're living. Going to 100 and beyond, healthy, and we want to bring people along for the ride. I'm hoping to see Jodi Lynn when she's 100.
Yeah.
That'll make me like 150.
Perfect.
I love that. All right. And then Jodi Lynn, I always go to you last because you always have the great summary. So I imagine you've actually had some thought because you're getting used to the pattern at this point. But tie it up in a bow with us.
There is at least one guarantee in life, and that is that we're all going to die. None of us make it out alive. But what our conversation has taught me today, and I hope that everybody listening has got this too, is that it's a choice on how you get there. And you can choose to have a vibrant, amazing life and longevity. And you get to choose that every day instead of the latter.
Wow, you were right, Walt. She put a ribbon
She's
on
good.
it.
She's really good. She does this every time, Mark. I mean, like literally every show it's like that.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you, Jodi Lynn, as usual. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.